everybody, and welcome back to Series 5 of the Climate Pioneers Show. Throughout the course of this series so far, we have been focused on angel investing for impact. We've been digging into why angel investment is such a crucial part of the fundraising landscape for early stage startups. We've been looking at how founders can be prepared to raise an angel round. We've looked at the lack of gender equity in the world of angel investment, and how you can begin your own angel investing journey. This is our final episode of the series. So if you've missed any of the other episodes, you can catch them up in a number of different places. On LinkedIn, on my profile, all of the previous episodes are on there, on the Above and Beyond YouTube channel, and in podcast format on Spotify, Acast, and Apple Podcasts. And today we are joined to see us out for the series by the lovely Neda Sahebelm, founder of Keshty, fractional COO, and angel investor. Neda has had an amazing career to date. She's worked for Fox and National Geographic and Multiverse, where she scaled their operations as a senior leader, building diverse and high-performing teams, which set her up absolutely perfectly for the work she does today as a fractional COO and founder of Keshty, where she is working to diversify the world of tech at scale through scale. I met Neda at the Angel Investing School via the lovely Andy A.M., who we actually had on the series last episode, Series 5. And I was hugely impressed by her background, by the work that she's done, what she's doing now with Keshty, and how all that links together to her story behind why she's become an angel investor and her thesis. So Neda, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me on.
My pleasure. So if you're happy to kick off, I talked a little bit there about the career journey that you've been on and your history and the experience you've gained to this point, but I love the story and I think it's so interesting. So if you're happy to share a little bit about that journey to sort of give us some context, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. I always start by saying that I grew up working class and it's my superpower because it enabled me to do a lot with very little. And I would say that in terms of my career, there was a natural penchant to go into the world of work and really understand why people do things and how to get the best out of them, maximize their impact. So even before the career started, I went and studied business psychology at King's College London. Shout out to my KCL alum. And I was fascinated because nothing really existed at the time. It was like a whole new world of psychology. No one really understood what it was about, but TLDR, it was just really understanding like the world of work and how people operate their best, maximize their impact, etc. And that led me into my first, intro into the world of fundraising, because even before Fox Nat Geo, my first sort of small gig was like a boutique consultancy project management role, if you will, for a micro VC that was based in Europe and wanted to expand into the US. And obviously growing up in a working class background, I had no idea about this whole world of investment and didn't understand what it meant. But I was there to lead this project and was my first taste of just the world of tech. This must have been like 2015. So still pretty new, cutting edge time. And yeah, I was really passionate about the fact that it was a women-led micro VC. They were trying to invest 10 million across the border. And I was really interested in finding out, well, what's going on back home. And this led to a really cool expansion project. And long story short, I was like, there's a lot of ways to fund a business that I didn't know about. And if you were going to tell me that less than 10 years later, I would be involved in that, I would think you're crazy. So I guess to take the journey along, was at Fox, Nat Geo, Multiverse. I had lots of dipping my toe opportunities into like big scale operations at Fox and Nat Geo across different regions, geographies, down to being an early starter at Multiverse, where it was still very bare bones, scrappy startup life, all the way through 6 funding rounds, and it became a unicorn. And that's when I went, okay, great. I feel like I've done a lot now, a lot of multifaceted things in my career, but actually I was really frustrated by funding and tech. I was still like, from my first sort of go at it, I was still really keeping tabs with what's going on with fundraisers, what's going on in tech. And only 2% of VC funding is going to ethnic and gendered minority founders. It just wasn't helping me sleep at night. So hopefully that sets up the journey to where I got to Keshty now, but it really was, we're still not in a much better place than we were 8 years ago when I first started learning about it 9 years ago.
And so how did all those pieces kind of pull together then to turn Keshty from a frustration at all of these factors into like, and I'm going to do something about it?
Yeah. It's interesting. I am privileged to know a lot of very brilliant founders, and having listened to many of their journeys, I realized things like a friends and family stage, like that just doesn't exist for people like me or a lot of other founders. If you don't have access to the mentorship or the opportunities of having worked for some very privileged people, then you just don't have loads of role models and you don't really know where to go off of. I was frustrated by that because I'm the kind of person who will seek that myself, and that's worked well for me. But I was becoming much more alive as my career progressed to the inequity of funding, access to investors, access to the rooms that they'll even be in. You know, when you grow up in a certain class as well, or in a certain demographic, like you have I suppose, a more constrained community of people who will shout out about you in a room you're not in.
Yeah.
And that's not always people with endless pockets of money. So there was an education piece that I kept finding was missing. Like I had to do a lot of my own research myself before I became an investor. And I had to leverage off of a lot of mentors who had very different life experiences than me. And I thought, you know, there's something missing here about like a relatable person who's just been there, done that, and kind of figured it out.
Yeah.
That we don't really have in abundance right now in the world of tech.
And what came first, the desire and the kind of plan to start angel investing, or the plan for Keshty, or have they always been inextricably linked?
That's a really good question. Keshty came about because I was frustrated by the lack of access and equity, especially for diverse and underrepresented founders. The investment was always something that I wanted to do. They came in hand perfectly, I think, because I started, like, I knew that I always wanted to keep building when I had left, I guess, my like 9-to-5 job. Yeah. I was not done with building. And that's why rather than go into, I suppose, an advisory role, I was like, I still want to be on the ground. I still want to build teams. I want to be at the helm. And that was underpinned by this passion of moving that forward for underrepresented founders who haven't been there, haven't done that. Again, I've had the privilege of like working for very influential and very experienced people. It's taught me a lot about what I wouldn't do again and also what I would replicate. So I really wanted to be someone who's been there, done that for those who haven't had that same set of experiences. But I also knew that with Keshty, like something I really have seen a lot of in my time is like this idea of social corporate responsibility. And it's kind of a lot of lip service. It's like, we're going to take a volunteer day. We're going to go and take some pictures of ourselves helping out school. We're going to go do that. It's just not, it's like a one-day thing.
Yeah.
It's pretty transactional. You know, it just wasn't doing it for me. And so, you know, I don't have loads of generational wealth to leverage off of, but I did think if I could support founders and the revenue that Keshty generates in exchange of that, why can't I commit a part of that going to back into underrepresented led tech? And so the commitment with Keshty has become, obviously it didn't start this way because I wasn't always revenue generating, but it did become 5% of our earnings will go back into a minority-led early stage startup. So think like every 20K that we generate, 1K of it will go back, which is not a substantial check, but it is something, and it is a commitment to action rather than just, yeah, we support and sometimes we go out for a day and we do a little bit of mentor. Like it's not enough. So yeah.
It's funny because that mirrors exactly right when we met and we were doing this the angel investing school with exactly what I was doing as well, right? Is, you know, we make our money from supporting climate tech businesses to grow, but with that money, I then angel invest it back into female founded climate businesses. So it makes it this lovely loop. Perfect. So you said this was something you had to kind of go and seek out for yourself, right? So what did that journey look like from, right, I'm going to start angel investing. This is something I want to do. I want to take some of this revenue and put it back in. But how did you start to piece the blocks together as to like, what does that actually look like as a journey? How do that, okay, that's called angel investing. And how do I become one of those? And what's the route? Like how did you discover those things?
I would say the time that I took on the project to learn about different methods of investing started a rabbit hole in the best possible way of doing research. Like for the last 8-9 years, I've been subscribed to TechCrunch or to Sifted, to any kind of media outlet that is giving me updates on how things are going in the world of tech. Carta is another one. So I would sort of religiously subscribe to any of these and keep an eye on the market. Even when I was at Fox and even when I was at Multiverse, I still was trying to learn as much as I possibly could. And there was very little literature at the time about how to get into angel investing. I also knew that I'm quite a risk averse person. so something that I knew as well was like, there might be some tax implications because obviously I am originally American and I did wait until I became British to start investing. I was like, I don't want to have to deal with different tax issues there. SEIS, EIS, it's like something that is much more UK centric. So I had to do a lot of digging. And cut a long story short, when I learned that there's also the requirement to either be a high income earner or to be a self-certified sophisticated, I was like, how do I do that? I could have leveraged off of the high income earner, but I was really conscious that I didn't want that to be my fallback forever in case I wanted to do something else and I didn't want to be in a salaried job. So I spoke to a couple accountants, and I would really recommend doing this to find the best ways to forge a path for yourself. And I learned that if I kind of take on, AIS ended up being the solution for me, but if I take on an educational route and then get involved in a few angel communities where obviously you don't quite have access to go in and invest just yet, but you get lots of deal flow, you get to learn about what thesis you want to have, you get to meet founders, you get to sit in on pitches. And that helped me formulate my investment thesis, what I really care about investing in, and the kind of founders that I believe in. And I would say now, obviously, you've got to wait 6 months to do that. But now that I have done one, I personally didn't rush to do too many more. Right. Like I was like, I have to really want it and really believe in it. Mm-hmm. And so I have taken my time. I have done 2. One hasn't been formally announced yet, but I have just done my second, and I really want to keep it that way, slow and steady.
And things that you truly believe in and can kind of get behind. Exciting. And how did you build out that thesis? And has it evolved? Has it changed since the initial premise?
Social mobility is like the key thing that I'm really, really passionate about, and climate is my close second. But given that my parents were refugees and I'm really connected to that part of my identity, something that is making the world a better place was crucial for me to be investing my money back in. It only felt right. It only felt fitting. So yeah, the 2 companies that I have invested in they have a minority co-founder, at least one minority co-founder, and also are a tech for good, sort of future of work, social mobility, really trying to democratize access for some of the most marginalized backgrounds out there. But also, and this is really important for my own thesis as well, is I need a path to profitability. Like I am an operator at the end of the day. I need to think you are making good financial choices. Even in your early stages, you can be scrappy. Things don't need to be perfect, but you are thinking about a sustainable, scalable, structured model. You have a clear path to profitability, and I know that you're going to use my investment for something smart and not like we just got like a subscription to this super expensive SaaS platform with 4 team members. Like, you know what I mean? I need to believe that you have thought about how you're going to use investor money. So yeah, I would say if I had to nail down my sort of key 3 things, it's like the founding team is really important for me. I have to really believe in them as founders. The nature of the business, so like a social mobility tech for good, future of work is definitely my sweet spot at the moment. And the final one is a scalable mindset, like a path to profitability, being able to work lean and sustainably to get traction even from the scrappiest days are three things that I would really value.
Awesome. And once you finished the program with Andy, what were your next steps beyond that? So you've joined, I know you've joined some syndicates because we're part of some of the same ones, but yeah, talk me through how you knew where to go, what syndicates you found, which ones you've joined, and sort of what you've learned, I suppose, on that part of the journey, coming out the other side of yes.
I sought out mentors rather than groups, I would say. I really wanted to find like a couple people who were investing in similar businesses and had similar theses. At the same time, I wanted people who were a few steps ahead of me.
Yes.
So, I've sort of surrounded myself with almost two schools of people, which I really like. People like us who went through the journey at the same time and we're figuring it out together is really, really nice, because we're sort of getting access to deal flow in different places. We're sharing it with each other. And there's this general, I guess, desire to move all of us forward at the same time, which is really nice and wholesome for a group with money, trying to like invest the money. The other one is people who have a lot of money and have spent it in many different places, because that is not my reality today.
Yeah.
But I am almost trying to temper my own risk aversion because I know I have things to lose. Whereas I'd love to be surrounded also by people who know what can be gained.
Yes.
It sort of tempers my own, I guess, restraint. So I've taken up mentors who are much more seasoned than I am, and I'm learning so much from them every day. In terms of syndicates, I had the pleasure of meeting a couple of different people. So across from the guys at Connected, which has been really great because they also do a lot of work around advisory and NED and are huge advocates for the fractional space. So that's been a great one. I think we're part of that together. And the other one is Alma. And so obviously, which I also think we're part of it. And they're very committed to democratizing access for female-led businesses. So it has been a real pleasure to be able to, I guess, put people through the funnel on both of those sides. Yeah. And the AIS one to me is like the OG. Like we're always going to be AISers. And I also want to shout out Andy. He's been a great mentor and actually was the person who told me that I've done so much research that I'm probably too risk averse and holding myself back from making some decisions. So yeah, it's been a really cool journey, and I'm glad to have done it with this group and with this group. So yeah,
what have kind of been your biggest learnings once you've been now you've gone through at least one investment that's gone to close, another that you're kind of running through the process with? What have been your biggest eye openers, or the things that you've learned either about yourself or about the process? Yeah.
The biggest eye opener for me has been on the founder side. And it is that a lot of founders, which feeds nicely into why Keshty exists, but a lot of founders are running these incredible tech for goods, particularly around social mobility or even things like climate, which again, disproportionately affects marginalized backgrounds, but then are asking for massive check sizes from angels. And that was something I realized very early on. So there's businesses that align incredibly well with my own experience. I'm just going to use myself as an example, but align incredibly well with my operational background, my ethos, things that I care about. But obviously I do not have minimum 10K check sizes that I can dish out. Right. And there's been a lot of work with founders around letting them know there are other ways to get people into the pot. And that actually having a diverse cap table doesn't need to be a mess, but it is important, especially if you're building something out that is in service of marginalized backgrounds, but you're only going to include like the top percent of earners who wouldn't otherwise be affected by this. So that's been a big learning piece, is how many founders have come to me and been like, we are looking for great investors and we're looking for a 20K minimum check size. And I'm like, have you even read my LinkedIn? Because like, where does it say that I could afford that? That's one on the founder side. And I suppose on the investor side, something that's been, I feel very like grateful about it, but I'm really surprised at how difficult it's been to manage. Which is like, once you make one investment, everyone is going to get into your DMs and be like, we're raising. And I was not prepared for the level of like the volume of those comps.
Yeah.
What's really interesting, actually, I guess this goes back to founders again, sorry guys, is I will always reply and be like, hey, great that you're raising. What was it particularly about my background that really appealed? And 90% of those people never replied to me.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. So it's like you're going to have to work a little bit hard if you're going to ask people to dish money out. You're going to have to know why you want them to be an investor and why you want them to be on board.
Yeah.
And if they ask you, like, that's great, you don't have it, because even responding to a message from that with a little bit of thoughtfulness and care, it might not be right for me, but it might be right for you. I might put them in your direction.
Yeah.
Or someone else's direction. So like, don't do this blanket. People know when you're sending out blanket messages. And if someone's going to invest time and money, energy, access to their network, their experiences, like you're gonna have to think about why you want them on board and be prepared to send a thoughtful message.
And just reply.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those have been eye-openers. I didn't expect those.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And how do you think, because obviously once you're on board, just being the kind of person you are, right? A, the amazing experience that you've got, and B, the fact that by nature you are like an executor, right? You see things, you see problems, you solve them, you fix things, you get stuff done, right? You would clearly be such a value add angel. So obviously clearly somebody that wouldn't just want to put the money in and sit back. So in the investments that you have made, what's your experience been of how you've been able to have a role as a value add beyond just the check?
Yeah, I love to connect people with each other in general. So I'm the kind of investor, for the limited investments I have made, I am the kind of investor who is happy to hop on and have a chat if something is, we've never seen this before. How did you experience it? What did you see at Multiverse? What did you see when you were setting teams up or whatever? I'm here for that. That's exactly what, like, I wouldn't invest in something that I felt like it couldn't add any value. So a lot of the early stage, how did we set up certain functions? How did we communicate with other teams? How did we align a product to a delivery, to a go-to-market strategy, to like, how did we do all of that? And then, I really think about my time at Fox and at Geo. How do you push to other regions and do it well? What are the things you need to think about? How do you manage teams across different geographies? How do you recruit really well and do it in a culturally smart and sensitive way? There's just a lot that I would love to contribute to, and I wouldn't invest if I didn't feel like I could. I suppose in the other sense as well, the connections piece is important. Like if at the end of the day, I will get a return on investment by the company being moved forward. And I know that I'm not the best person for everything. And that's why I would always try to facilitate an intro wherever I could, or if there's something relevant. One that's fun for me is when people go out to the US and I can be like, great, here's a network. Actually, shockingly, is the people I grew up with. That's really cool because, I've been here for 10 years in London and I've got an awesome network in London. But I love when some of those companies are like, we're thinking of going out to the US. Who should we meet? And I'm like, I actually have people for you. So yeah, connections and just really general advice, support. Those are two things that I'd really value offering.
Yeah. And at the reverse of that, so that's a little bit about how your career and your experiences there have made you a better angel. But how do you think your angel investing journey to date, or how you hope it'll go, will in turn make you a better founder and advisor? So how's your angel investing going to help you build Keshty?
Very great question. The whole premise of Keshty, I guess, let me give a little bit of background. A lot of people told me not to do it. They were like, no one understands what fractional is. Nobody is going to want to take on an operator part-time. How can you be a COO to a founder if you're not there to really be their second in command 24/7? And something I pride myself in, and I'm sure the companies that I work with would say the same, I hope, is that like I can do a shocking amount of work in a day. And like a shocking amount of very high value strategic.
I've seen your calendar and I can attest to this.
Like I'm not going to beat around the bush. I can get a lot of shit done in a day. Good shit. And there's real value to me. I guess the best comparison I have is honestly when I worked at Multiverse, I was in a bubble of only seeing what was going on with our business and maybe like some of the closest competitors. I just was not looking at the rest of the market actively. And had I not already set up certain subscriptions where I was constantly keeping an eye, but those were coming into my inbox.
Yeah.
I wasn't actively seeking it. And I honestly didn't have the bandwidth to actively seek it because I was doing a massive job. I didn't want to do that again. I was like, I owe it to founders and especially minority founders to be like, part of what value I can add in a fractional sense is connecting you to other people in a similar space from a similar background, also connecting you to minority investors, of which there are a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I happen to know many of them. I'm very privileged to know many of them. And so cutting out the middle in between BS, getting people connected much quicker. And on the other side, I don't think I could do a better job operationally unless I know how things are going outside of the business.
Yeah.
And at least having 2 or 3 clients, all of whom now also kind of know each other and talk. And there's just so much that can be achieved in a group and with a couple more minds. So yeah, having an eye on how the rest of the market is going in general has really kept me alive and preemptive to things that could happen and has made me a really good operator. Like I think this is the best I've ever performed as an operator. And it is because I'm not in a bubble of the business that I work in. I'm seeing outside and I'm using that to apply back into how can we move even faster and be more agile and iterative.
Yeah. Love that. And how do you manage it all, right? So outside of the beautifully color-coded calendar, which I you actually inspired me to then go and color code my calendar, which now, thank you very much, looks beautiful.
I'm so good.
I haven't done the scheduling in toilet breaks though, which I know you are a fan of. So.
I do. I put in a break and it's in gray and it's there every day, slotted in. Yeah, you're right. I love that you remember that.
I do. So how do you fit it in, right? So if there are other people listening to this, they're thinking, right, I want to start my angel investing journey, but I have a full-time job and I have a really busy full-time job. How do you fit together, the learning, the keeping on top of everything that you need to keep on top of, managing the deal flow, dealing with the syndicates, and running Keshty and delivering for your clients?
I'll try to not use myself as an example because I'm like a very organized person. You know what? I will use other ways I've seen it, including my own, and actually, hopefully, that will help people think what works best for them. There are some people who swear by Notion. I'm starting to get used to it as well. It's not my favorite thing.
When I spoke to you before, you were like, not a fan. So, you're coming around.
I'm still not the biggest fan in the world, but there's some people who will organize via Notion.
Yeah.
I'm an Asana girl personally. Asana free as well. You know, there's so much you can do with it for free. So I typically put my deal flow on that.
Mm-hmm.
The great thing about the syndicates is they've all got their own Slack channels and then corresponding Airtables. So I can go on that. But I don't know if this is necessarily the most, this is the smartest way to do it. I have a lot of really excellent mentors and I try to utilize the max of their time. And this is the way some of them do it. And so I'm hoping it's like going to be useful. But it's a lot of referrals. Like if I know the founders and I've gotten to build a relationship with them and I've seen that they are incredible, naturally, that is what has led me to want to invest in them. And in the situation of my two, those founders are like relentless. And so they're relentless, but healthy, I guess is the best way to put it. I don't feel like I've invested in anyone who's going to run themselves into the ground. And I also don't feel like I've invested in people who aren't the top 1% bar of excellence. Like it's a fine balance to be ambitious and a high performer. And to also know like life is about living. So it has been through meeting like-minded founders, the ones that I have invested in, building a relationship with them and genuinely wanting to see them succeed, which has been the best thing for me versus any kind of like tool that could manage my deal flow or anything like that. And I guess the other one is we've got certain networks too. So like there's a group of us who've gone through the same journey together, and we've got a WhatsApp channel, and occasionally we meet up and we talk about deal flow and we learn together. And that's also the best way, because we all know each other's theses and want the other to succeed. And so we'll only pass something on if we believe in it and also think it could be fruitful for the other person. So
yeah, absolutely. And what are you excited about for the rest of this year? What are the plans?
Oh gosh, Keshty's not even a year old, and already it's done well. Like, I'd knock on wood, and I don't want to put any bad juju out there, but it's doing well. And so I'm excited to, not this year, but in the future, I'm really excited to see more minority-led companies on the map.
Mm-hmm.
Got an important voice, and the work that we're doing is often in service of marginalized backgrounds. And I'm excited to see more of that rather than your classic, like, SaaS, blah, blah, blah. It's cool. It's cool. I'm a big fan of SaaS. Actually, the UK is a big fan of SaaS. Go out to the US and they have other things on their mind. But I'm excited to just see a few more underrepresented voices gaining traction, pushing businesses forward. I'd love to see more unicorns that are started by an underrepresented founder. I'd love to see profitable businesses that didn't have to take like massive amounts of VC funding, because when you've only got really one shot, you're not reckless and you think about how can I actually get it right the first time. So I'm excited about that. And in a short, I think Keshty turns like 8 months old tomorrow.
Oh, wow.
I know, a little baby. But in that short amount of time, I'm quite proud of what we've achieved. Like 2 investments, 3 companies that we've been with full time that are really moving forward. One, we just closed a fundraise, or we're in the process of closing a fundraise for. The other one is doing really well and looking to expand out. Like there's just so much, so many wins to see minority founders achieve. And I'm excited to see that in the next year, but also next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. So
amazing. I'll be watching this space, and hopefully we'll be able to catch up soon and I can hear even more about it off air. But Neda, thank you so much for joining me and for sharing all of that, experiences and the story and the journey with everybody out there that will be listening. I'm sure anybody looking to undertake their own angel investing journey will find loads of value in that conversation. And if there are any founders, because I know lots of founders have been listening to this series, that want some support on a fractional COO basis, then I'm sure Neda would be happy to have a chat.